Hi folks, it's Chris here. Today we're going to be talking about licensing, one of my favorite subjects in the world. Those of you that know me, I basically live to do licensing. So if you want to follow me, this is where to go. You can always freeze frame the video and just scan the QR code or use aka.ms/ChrisH. Right, let's get down to business. So Power Platform obviously has the data layer at the very bottom and all this amazing application sort of interaction layer on top, right? Now, in order to use all of this, you got to pay some money. And at no point will you get this absolutely for free. You might think it's for free, but it's not. So all your M365 folk out there that say Power Platform is free with Office, you're paying for it in some way or another. Right, so let's start off with Power BI. Power BI is broken down into three licensing areas. You have Power BI Free, Power BI Pro, and Power BI Premium. And I've listed the differences directly on the slide here. Now, a couple of things that are really important in this one. If you're using Power BI Free, you cannot share dashboards and reports. That's pretty important, right? Because that's the whole thing about Power BI. It's about accessing data. So if you've got the free version, you can create and view reports, but you don't really have a way to share them with people. Whereas in the Pro version, you do. The other thing that's pretty important is your refresh times. So when you look at your daily refreshes, Power BI Free and Pro, you have 8 times, whereas in Premium, you have 48 refreshes. That's absolutely bonkers. And your cost, obviously, Free is free, Pro is $10 per user per month, and Premium is $5,000 per month. The next one is Power Apps, the big controversial one. We'll be covering a bit more Power Apps later on in the session and talking about the different models that you can leverage. But Power Apps is effectively broken down into 3 separate licenses. It's actually 4 because you get Power Apps with Dynamics, but like I said, we'll talk about that later. So per user, you've got $40. Per app, you've got $10. And then with the M365 seeded license, you get it with Office. Now, there's some really crucial differences here. Per app and per user, you can leverage premium connectors. I call them business productivity connectors. In the seeded version with Office, you can't. So you can only use standard or personal productivity connectors. A couple other things that are important with per app and per user, you can generate model-driven applications, whereas M365 seeded, you can't. So you also can't create portals. Now, there's a couple of things that you get with the Power Apps license. If you're using per app or per user, you do get a common data service environment, or at least capacity for one. You then get 50 megabytes per user that is on the per app license, or an extra 250 megabits per month on top of your capacity for each per user license. Another thing is that all flows within Power Apps are then included within the context of the app. So the context of the app means if you have an app and it sends an email every single time a record gets captured, great. That flow will be licensed within the context of the app. However, if you have an Oracle system and Flow sends an email from that, that's not within the context of the application. Power Automate, this is pretty key because Power Automate has got business process flows, Flow, and robotic process automation, or RPA. Now, remember, Power Apps has already got this within the context of the app, but some organizations don't buy it within the context of the app. So they don't need Power Apps, they just want Power Automate Flow. So with Flow, per user, you're paying $15 per user per month. That means that each user that is licensed gets the capability and capacity to actually build out their own flows. One of the big points to make here is that when you buy RPA, you pay $40 per user per month, but then you get the attended RPA functionality with that. So you can connect to solutions without APIs. That's a big deal. So if you've got data in a solution that's legacy, you can actually start grabbing that data and interfacing it with other systems. And then finally, your per flow plan. With the per flow plan, you get 5 flows. Now, per user and RPA, when they're licensed against the user themselves, they are unlimited, whereas per flow, you only get 5. But those per user and RPA plans are run within the context of the user, whereas the per flow license is run within the context of the organization. So typically, those big automations or those big sort of interfacing tools or processes, that's where you want to use your organization-wide flows. Let's take a look at Power Virtual Agents. So Power Virtual Agents are session-based. You pay $1,000 per effectively 2,000 sessions, and then there's a top-up cost, which we'll speak about later on. Then finally, we've also got the AI Builder licensing. So AI Builder licensing is also effectively session-based or unit-based. So what you'll do is you'll pay $500 per unit. Now here's the thing. The unit is quite hard to describe. So the way we're going to do it is we're going to explain that in the AI calculator, if you put in the number of images you would like it to recognize, or the number of words you would like to analyze, or sentences you would like to analyze, or natural language queries you would like to use, or sentiments you would like to analyze, it will work out how much you need to pay. And you get loads and loads and loads with this. So I would say definitely explore the AI Builder calculator. Also, we're going to talk about the Common Data Service. So with the Common Data Service, you're effectively getting the Common Data Service with your Dynamics license, per user license, or per app license. Here's the thing. You also will get the 250 or 50 megs if you buy per user or per app. Now, if you need more space, you need to pay. Space is broken down, or capacity is broken down into 3 areas. You've got your database capacity, which is effectively your relational structure, and that's $40 per gig per month. You've got your file capacity, which is $2 per gig per month, and then you've got your log capacity, which is $10 per gig per month. It's really awesome that they've split this out. And the reason I say that is because imagine it was all lumped together and you were like uploading videos into the CDS, and that was charged at $40 per gig per month. Whew, you're going to be paying lots of money. So it's awesome that they've done that. What's important is that based on the tech that I've just spoken about, you architect solutions based on the processes that your customer's given you. Now here's the thing. You don't want to be hammering mission critical solutions into simple business use cases just to skimp on licensing. Very, very key. So in the architectural sessions later on in the Power Apps Factory, we'll be talking about that. But it's important that you know that just to try and save money, don't mess with the architecture. Put the right things in the right place. As an example, relational structured data belongs in tools like Project Oakdale and CDS. Sure, you can put elements of it in SharePoint lists, but I wouldn't recommend it. Also, the Common Data Service can store images and videos and things. SharePoint's great at doing that. You might pay a little bit more in the CDS, so it's always a good idea to keep that in mind. So when you're architecting solutions, please think about the process and what the right technology is for that. Now, in no world can a mission-critical solution cost the same as a simple business process case. It just can't do it, right? And if you think about that, then you'll start understanding, well, try and get your customers to be realistic about the type of solutions that they've got. So let's take a look at some of the licensing options. And I've tried to be a little bit more descriptive about how to select the right license for your organization or the project that you're dealing in. So let's take a look at some of the licensing models. The first one is seeded licenses with Office or Dynamics 365. So you'll get certain functionality with both of those. As an example, if you have an M365 license, like an E5, you already have Project Oakdale. So you can start leveraging Project Oakdale in all of your solutions. Whereas in Dynamics 365, you already have the Common Data Service. So you can actually start building applications out on top of the CDS, dependent on this Common Data Service or Dynamics 365 license that you have. And we'll get to that shortly. The next one you have is your full-on product features with standalone premium licenses. So per app or per user. You get loads of functionality. You get premium connectors. You can leverage flow and RPA. Very important to understand that. The next model we got is shared features across the organization. So you might have different licenses for different products that are shared across the org. As an example, Power Automate per Flow or Power BI Premium. AI Builder is a tenant-focused license, not a user-focused license. And then finally, you've got some access that you can share with external people. So things like Power Apps portals. You can license Power Apps portals so that people can leverage information from inside of your organization. So depending on the type of license you need, so you've got your seeded license with M365 and Dynamics, your full product feature license with your per app or per user license, your shared features license with licensing unattended RPA, Power Virtual Agents, AI Builder, Customer Voice, Flow, and then lastly, your external functionality that other people will need to leverage, like Power Apps portals. So what we're going to take a look at is some of the routing rules around how to select your licensing. First of all, yes, I'm excited about Power Apps. I've used Power Apps as the mechanism to try and explain this. So first things first, do you have an M365 license? Oh, no, I don't. I don't have E3 or E5, and there's loads in the list of the licensing guide. Okay, we'll go ahead and get one. Awesome. Do you have an M365 license? Yes. Do you want to connect to Dynamics? Yes. Do you have a Dynamics 365 enterprise app like marketing or field service? Yes. Go ahead and build out solutions with that application, but make sure it's in the same tenant and connected to the CDS, the Common Data Service. Now, that's kind of the easy route. The harder route comes is where you're going, well, do you want to connect to Dynamics 365? Nope. Would you like to use premium connectors? Yes. Oh, that changes everything, because then you have to pay for a Power Apps license, and that's really key. Now, it's that decision tree right in the middle that says, would you like to leverage premium connectors, where all the controversy takes place. So think about it. What is a premium connector? A premium connector is a business productivity connector. A standard connector is a personal or team productivity connector. SharePoint, personal productivity or team's productivity. Oakdale, personal or team productivity. SQL, Common Data Service. Enterprise productivity, wider business productivity. Okay? Oracle and SAP, business productivity. Twitter, personal productivity. So when you're looking at these types of connectors, you need to make a decision. If you would like to not use premium connectors, you can go ahead and use the standard connectors and use your M365 functionality for that. If you would like to use premium connectors, you need to pay for a premium license. You do get premium connectors when you use a Dynamics 365 enterprise application or sales application. If it's enterprise, you can build any app within the tenant connecting to the Common Data Service. If it is pro, the app can only be embedded directly on the Dynamics 365 solution, so no extra model-driven applications. But the main thing is keep your eye on those premium connectors or the standard connectors. A good example of this is that when you're branching out and trying to figure out what you want to do, just another illustration. So I've got an Office 365 license. I'm going to connect up to Twitter and LinkedIn and Planner and SharePoint. But when it gets a bit more serious, again, around the business connectivity, you can use the per app plan where you can create 2 applications. You can connect up to Dynamics. You can connect up to pretty much any business productivity connector you'd like. Or you can have the per user plan, which is a little bit larger. And what that'll do is allow you to connect to pretty much all of those business productivity suites or solutions with as many apps as you would like. So it's the all-you-can-eat buffet. Similar type of thing with Flow, right? So when you take a look at Flow, you've got your per user plan. Now, sure, you can connect to you can use premium connectors and custom connectors, but it's the flow within the context of you, not in the context of us. When you start looking at the flow and RPA per user outside of that, well, it gets a lot larger because you can do a lot more connectors and you can build out to a lot more solutions, especially with the RPA functionality, because that can connect to anything without an API. So it's really great use over there. So let's take a look at the portals licensing. Everyone's favorite. Portals licensing can be tough. So what we're going to do is, first of all, we're going to look at, well, you can build out portals pretty quickly. And what's great is that they all connect to the Common Data Service. So when you publish them, you're effectively using Common Data Service metadata. What gets interesting, though, is once your portal's been published, who is going to be accessing it? So anonymous users. You need to license those users on a page count basis. So you get people logging into your portal, checking out your knowledge base, the FAQs, homepage, contact us, etc., etc. And what's pretty awesome is that those users can then connect as many times as they would need to without logging in. But there is a license fee to that. You then have authenticated users. These are users that actually have a login. So they will physically type information into the portal, log in, and they'll be able to manage things like cases and service requests and all those good things. And then the third one, this is very important, is your employee list. Now, if you have portals internally, they must be and are required to be licensed as either a Power Apps per app user or a D365 plan user. Now, if you don't license that employee and they're still accessing that functionality or data, they are multiplexing. And what that means is that multiplexing is purposefully replacing technology or software with something else to negate paying for a license. So the rule of thumb around multiplexing is, if you see the strawberry cupcake on the table and you feel like taking it is wrong, it probably is wrong. But I would suggest start researching the licensing guide and understanding a bit more around multiplexing. We will talk about multiplexing when we get into the actual architectural pieces around building solutions. This slide is awesome. I might spend a bit of time on this one because there's a lot of detail here, but actually this is probably one of the best slides I've seen that breaks down the licensing information. When you take a look at the list, right, you can kind of see very quickly how much things cost. First of all, a couple of things I want to draw your attention to. You will see very quickly that there's a line there that actually talks about restricted entities. So restricted entities are Dynamics 365 entities that are specific to the Dynamics 365 application. What that means is that users that are part of Power Apps can actually build Power Apps on top of the Dynamics 365 data model and read information from those specific Dynamics 365 entities. Here's something else awesome. Not all entities in Dynamics 365 are restricted. Like opportunity, I can install the Dynamics 365 data model into my Power Platform environments and connect to it with a Power App and only pay for a Power App license, not a Dynamics license. Now there are rules, and once again, multiplexing comes into play here. If you don't understand multiplexing, you won't understand where the digital guide rails are on what you can connect to and what you can't. Also, please pay careful attention to the API limits and the throttling limits. When we talk about API limits, it's the number of calls that the flow or the Power App makes. API limits are a big deal because if you build a user interface on top of the Common Data Service, and that user interface has hundreds of fields and forms and pick lists and lookups, there's a very good chance that you're going to be making more API calls to that database or that Common Data Service data storage facility than you think. So architecting solutions carefully is important. And this is why when we talk about using the per app plan, people said, can we just make a God mode app that just like connects to everything? And I said, sure you can, but you'll hit your API limits per user very quickly because you're only limited to 1,000. So please bear this in mind. This slide is very key. One of the other slides I'd like to talk to you about is the add-ons pricing. Everything has got a top-up price. So whatever you do, you're going to end up topping stuff up. Like Power Virtual Agents. Power Virtual Agents, for an additional 1,000 sessions, you're paying $450 a month instead of $1,000 a month. When you're looking at customer voice, for an extra 2,000 responses, you're paying $100 a month. The portals one is staggered. So you can actually be paying $3,500 a month for 5,000 logins. With your page views that are 100K, you're paying $100 a month. From an RPA unattended perspective, you're looking at $150 a month for an unattended bot. Common Data Service we've already spoken about. API calls, this is really important. $50 a month, and you can add 10,000 API calls to that specific user or service user. And then effectively your Power BI, you can build out using the various cores. So you can end up paying about, I don't know, $5,000 for extra resources on top of that. So it's pretty important to remember that you can top up pretty much everything in the Power Platform. So with your customer and with your solution, it's important that you do the mathematics and try and understand what your solution is going to be made of. So licensing isn't always a sales thing anymore. It's now been focused quite a lot on the tech side as well from an architectural perspective. So if you'd like to get some great resources into licensing, there's a very good chap called Yuka. He's an MVP. For me, he has cleared up the licensing stuff 1,000 times. So he speaks about it in English, right? He'll tell you exactly what's under the hood and what's not. Also, the Microsoft Docs sites, please know that there is a great amount of licensing information within there. Also, some licensing etiquette. Folks, guide before guidance. I cannot tell you how many questions we get where it just comes down to reading the licensing guide. You can get that on the Docs site. Give it a read. It's not that bad. Like, we've managed to summarize it here pretty quickly. Also, community and the OCP field engineers at Microsoft don't control the pricing. It's pointless getting angry with us when you read something that doesn't add up to you. Rather have a technical discussion and let's talk about guidance. We're more than happy to do that. But remember, the licensing is very key, but also down to the way you build the solution. Importantly, do what's right by your customer, not what's cheap. Go with what's right, not cheap. And if it's cheap, fine, but as long as it's the right solution. So with that, I'd like to thank you very much for your attention. It's been awesome. Licensing is a tough discussion. I hope this has helped you out a lot. And yeah, we'll be talking about a lot of this functionality in a practical sense and more of the design workshops. So yeah, that's Chris Huntingford. Chat to you really soon and have a fantastic evening, day or morning. Cheers.